Awesome. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me. Um, I I don't know if the presentation was kind of set, but I run a company that was previously called IT Hive Mind, but we're now looking at being more about the life focus, but still for IT professionals, and it's balanced life mastery. Um, I kind of my real passion in life is around developing people, getting high performing teams and having them grow. So that's where I've really been focused. I also am a senior director of IT operations at Charles River Labs, which is a contract research organization. So I'm still very much in IT support and tech. And one of the things I really like to help people with is kind of the simple practical advice. I think too often there's a load of real complex methodologies or processes put out there that are almost to make the training provider sound more intelligent, but they're almost impossible to put into play. So that's where I sort of find that I got the biggest value during my career, and the teams that I work with get the biggest value. So there's a lot of tips and tricks in here as we go through. You don't need to use all of them. You kind of need to use the ones that resonate with you, but you'll kind of see that as we start to go through it. So just a little bit of background about me. I've been in IT over 20 years. I actually started out in computer aided design. I know this is the Cambridge group, so it was actually the corner of Station Road was where I first started. So I was at Mott MacDonald. Found that I was breaking computers more than I was trying to do CAD, so kind of moved into IT support and worked through small consultancy firms, SMEs, all the way up to global pharma and now at Charles River Lab. So kind of had a lot of varying organizations I've worked for, and then kind of started out in desk side support, infrastructure support, and then kind of moved through to a bit of architecture, leadership, and various global roles. So I've kind of seen a lot of different bits, but on that journey, I really started to struggle, especially once you're in the global environment, around how you made that progress in your career, how I kind of overcame hurdles, and then also I'm very fortunate that I get to talk to a lot of people in my team, but also my business partners. So whether it's the HR teams, the legal groups, and kind of see what kind of works in corporate, but also what are some of the bits that you don't necessarily know about if you're a sole contributor or just starting out on a management kind of journey. So that's really what I want to take you through. There's kind of two phases. There is some overlap, but it's really about kind of how you get yourself noticed at work, and then how you go about getting promoted. Because time and time again, you'll kind of feel like you deserve that promotion or you deserve that recognition for what you're doing, but often you're not seen, or you kind of don't get what you deserve, and then that can be really disheartening. And there's nothing worse than going into work not feeling that motivation, feeling like everything that you're doing isn't providing that that benefit back that you're delivering through. So it's, and a lot of this is around kind of, it's a great time of year to do it. A lot of people will have either just set their goals or they're in the process of just finishing them off. So trying to get a few of these layered in, and also working out where you want to be this time next year will be really beneficial. We'll start with getting noticed, and it's kind of really comes down to, why is it important? I think I love this quote. It's actually from a marketing campaign, but it's top of mind means tip of tongue, and it's you have to kind of be in people's consciousness. There's, you can do a fantastic job, but when people aren't thinking about you, when conversations happen, or when promotions are being talked about, or when there's big projects coming up, it's really hard to kind of get that momentum and get the foot in the door. And what I kind of found is, yes, we've got video conferencing, we could do a lot of travel, obviously not quite as much at the moment. We've got this massive array of communication platforms, but that kind of gives a real abstract between you and leadership. If you're communicating via email, you're communicating via whether it's Zoom or Slack or all these tools, you're kind of losing that personal element where you could build that rapport with people. So it becomes even more important that you've got these strong bonds with people. And what I think you find is when you first start your career and you're kind of a junior developer or junior support person, you get a ton of support. So you'll get a load of time with your manager because they want to make sure that you're successful, and you'll get lots of training courses, whether it's technical training courses or the kind of HR ones around kind of developing yourself. And then also when you get to a senior level, you kind of get the exec career paths and you get the mentoring and bits like that. But there's this kind of lost middle that so many people fall in, that you're doing a really solid job, so you actually spend less time with your manager because you're solid worker, sole contributor. You don't need your hand being held constantly. A lot of people don't like the oversight of their manager. They're doing a good job, they just kind of want to get on. But what that means is you're kind of separated. Your boss doesn't always know what you're working on. You're providing this ton of value, but it's not really noticed. So when it gets to certain points, people kind of they're kind of just delivering, and it's just that continuous ongoing. They're not kind of getting in front of people, and that quite often leads to people sort of settling. You decide that this is your job grade, this is where you're meant to be. You're supposed to be this senior developer person. You might want more, but you kind of stop progressing, and then you settle. And that's one of the most disheartening things as a leader is seeing people in your team settle, because they kind of feel like that this must be their level. And also this can happen if you see other people progressing. So other people are doing they're getting the promotions, they're getting the big jobs, and you're going, well, I'm better than them, or you perceive yourself as better than them. And then that adds to that disheartening aspect as well. So this kind of really drives that you have to be more active. You have to be proactive about what you want to do, where you want to get to. You can't sit back like we probably could in the past, where you could let your qualifications or your project delivery speak for itself. There's so many more intangible bits that now are coming into play. So the first big step to getting into it is all about communicating. So seems straightforward, but like I said, there's so many different communication methods we've got now, and you kind of need to plan it and be a bit more conscious. So first bit is around knowing your audience. We're a globally dispersed workforce now. You have to kind of understand what the cultural differences are. I'll have a very blunt email come from someone in France, or there's certain hierarchical approaches that you have to have with people in Japan, so you won't get a straight answer. They have to kind of go through management. And also English isn't everyone's first language. And I think there's so many times that you need to make sure that you're communicating in the right way that people understand, but at the same time you need to be understanding of how someone's messaging you. If it's a very blunt message, it doesn't mean that it's a blunt delivery of a message. It doesn't mean that they're in a bad mood with you. It just means that that's how they write. But so much can kind of get derailed by the way you communicate to people. I think a lot of people will have probably done the discs or the Myers-Briggs and pieces like that, where they talk about personality traits as well. So it's starting to understand, if your manager likes data, don't give him a really high level presentation, or if she just wants to be working at momentum. It's hard if you want to tell them the whole story. So it's really starting to understand your audience. That's about building the rapport with them, understanding their kind of pains and how you can kind of overcome them. So how do they want to make a decision, basically? If you've got a highly detailed manager, don't give them a one pager for why you want $500,000 to overhaul your platform. So it's kind of understanding that. The next bit's around your emails and communications. Emails can trigger people massively. If you send a very direct email, or you kind of poorly word something, you can really trigger an emotional reaction. So just be careful when you're doing it. I don't like email as a communication method. It's fine if you want to follow up with someone, but if you can have a phone call with someone and then follow up with an email saying, yeah, this is what we discussed, it's so much more powerful. You lose context with an email. And also when you're sending one, a really quick tip is read it and say, if someone sent me this, how would I feel? Because I feel that email is used when you want someone to do something, but you don't really want to have that awkward conversation. So the amount of times I get an email saying, I need this by this date, and it's like, I don't care. There's nothing in it for me at that stage. So if you're going to send someone an email with no context about what you're trying to achieve, why it's important, what's the business value to it, really kind of sit back and think, because you can do so much damage with that poor communication that kind of goes on down the line. And then one of the last bits around communication is, and this is really important, is speak up in meetings. So try not to be the kind of silent person in the meeting. It's really easy to do, again, with the sort of abstraction and the sort of separation due to technology, that you can just be the kind of quiet person in the room. You can listen. It can feel really uncomfortable sticking your hand up and saying, oh, I don't understand. But if you don't do it, people don't get to know you, so they don't hear you, they don't hear you speak up, they don't have you come with solutions. So you could be the solutions person just by talking up in a meeting. I think a lot of people have some great ideas, they don't feel confident enough to do it. So make sure you're doing that. And there's nothing more frustrating than leaving a meeting, someone coming and speaking to you and saying, oh, I didn't like what was discussed in that meeting, I think we should do this. And it's like, right, great. So now we're going to have another meeting because you didn't want to talk about the problem in the meeting. And then that kind of, again, it drives this kind of negative mindset around people. So it's these little things. And it's amazing when I got to a sort of certain level that this stuff kind of gets talked about. Who's standing up and talking? How many of the leads haven't made a comment for the last 3 team meetings? Bits like that. It kind of gets spotted, I think, more than people realise. And to kind of go with that about talking up, turn on your camera. I don't necessarily mean in this group, because it's kind of not that. It's not that kind of session, but eye contact's so important, so people can see that you're paying attention. If your video is off, there's almost this assumption that you're checking your email, or you're working on something else, or you're showing really small value to that meeting. So having it on, looking at the screen, don't then check your phone and do all this stuff and be seen to kind of look around. But it shows you're engaged, and firstly it helps the presenter or the collaboration, but also you turn your camera on, other people turn theirs on. You can now start to read the room, which is really important. So especially if you're presenting and you've turned your camera on, others have turned theirs on, you can see how your message is resonating. Are there nodding heads? Are there people losing interest? You can see when someone wants to ask a question because they're either leaning into the camera or they're putting their hand up, and it's a lot easier to kind of gauge those things. So these little bits actually go such a long way. Especially if it's kind of a head of department that sat there and they're kind of seeing who's on, who's off. It's those little triggers. And then the last bit is just be punctual. To meetings. The amount of times I used to see, I spent a lot of time in California for a large pharmaceutical, and the amount of people that used to turn up 5 minutes late and said it was the it was the Foster City 5 minutes. So basically they said, oh, we're always 5 minutes late to a meeting. But they'd come in with a Starbucks in their hand and a laptop under their arm and sort of trying to jimmy their way through the door. And it's clear the fact that they'd gone and got a Starbucks before the meeting. So it's, again, be punctual, be there, be ready to take notes and bits like that. So all really simple things, but it's like the shiny shoes thing. That first impression is absolutely key. So it all kind of ties into that. The next bit, and this is probably where I kind of enjoy it the most, but it's quite uncomfortable to get started, and it's getting the mindset you need. And this is really how you start to shine in front of people. So the first one's get yourself uncomfortable. And I love the quote that a comfort zone's a beautiful place, but nothing ever grows there. And you can get really kind of, you know, whether it's your technology stack that you work in, or whether it's the people that you talk to, or if it's the task that you'll stick your hand up to, you can feel super comfortable, but you're not really growing, you're not really learning anything new. Yeah, you need to challenge yourself, because you'll be amazed what you can do when you challenge yourself. I used to be super low confidence. Yeah, I didn't like presenting, I didn't like talking on camera and things like that. And then I kind of realized, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And I started doing some videos for LinkedIn, and then you realize that actually this isn't as scary as possible. And you know what? No one cares if you get your words wrong, or if my kids run in now. Yeah, it doesn't matter. But you'll grow a lot more from doing it. But also, you're now the person that will. So you're the person that will present to the board of directors, or you're the person that will put forward the budget request, because you're the confident person that's happy to stand in front of the CIO. So now you're the go-to person, because you're willing to go that extra mile and have those conversations. So kind of keep that in mind, that, you know, it's being all right to be uncomfortable. Don't do it all the time, because that's really bad. But make yourself uncomfortable, stretch yourself, see what you're truly capable of. And kind of tied to that, just around taking ownership. So yeah, you see problems, kind of feel free to stick your hand up. You know, if you see a bad process, put your hand up, say that there's a problem with it, own problems, and be like that. Because again, it's the only way to kind of get forward. You're kind of putting yourself slightly in the firing line, but as long as it's for the right reason, you'll get a huge amount out of it. And then the nice bit around the kind of mindset is just be curious. You know, with a positive attitude. If someone's talking about something, ask them why. You know, I think development's probably a great discussion point for this year. Asking someone, oh, why did you code something a certain way? Or, you know, why didn't you use this technology stack? Why did you use that technology stack? It's all about being curious. You know, you'll learn a lot from people. You'll learn, understand how their thought process works. You'll learn something new that you could use, because next time you may realize that their method was better than yours. Or you just kind of get that little bit of context. And then at the same time, just helping others. So yeah, you're having that conversation, you're listening to their ideas, you're putting ideas in, and it's all kind of building that rapport. You're now a problem solver. You're now helping people, because kind of life's a boomerang. Whatever you give, you get back. So if you help people, you know, they'll give stuff back. They'll help you back. I think one of the biggest things I realized in my IT career is everyone I work with is not my competition. Yeah, I'm not trying to win the job. I'm not trying to win at work. We want to collectively win. I kind of always felt at the start that I had to be better than everyone else. So why would you help them? Because then that's taking away from you. But actually, if you've helped them, you've solved their problems. That's huge, and that's far more beneficial. And then the last bit on mindset is just ask for feedback. It can be uncomfortable, but again, it's the only way you grow. And actually, you'll find people love giving feedback. If you go to someone in management or someone that you respect, and you kind of ask for feedback, whether that's formally through like a 360 program, or whether it's you know, just ad hoc. I love it when people come and ask me for feedback, because firstly, it shows they care, and it shows that they value my opinion. So there's a nice ego boost for the person you're asking, and then they're kind of compelled to help you, which is great. But if you ask for the feedback, really listen, don't challenge it. If they believe it, it's true to them. So it's always important to listen to it, take it with context. You can disregard it if it's out of context or if it's not valuable, but don't ever argue it, because it is true to that person. And then if you implement the solutions, ask for that feedback again, ask for a review, because then you're kind of building that rapport, generally because you're asking someone more senior, and then they kind of know that you're developing yourself. So Rock solid mindset gets you so far through. Being that open person, being that collaborative person. So the next section is all about delivery, and yeah, this is the kind of bread and butter where we generally all sit. So this is, you know, making sure that you're offering to take on new projects. You're taking on those challenges. You want to grow, so you're showing that desire to take that next step. And again, very few people do it. A lot of people will sit there and wait for their manager to kind of hand projects out. So it's that person with a hand up. But also spending time, you know, those projects, if you can spend time outside of your department as well. So, you know, spend some time learning business context. You know, what is the business value of developing this application? Because I think we can quite often get very IT focused. We can get very solution focused, and we're looking at the, you know, functional requirements, user requirements. We delivered those, fantastic. But if you can understand that business context, firstly, it's really powerful for getting a team to deliver if they can understand that this application will directly impact revenue by X percentage, or maybe it's reducing time to market for a drug, which then means you can help 100,000 people because it's got there 3 months earlier than it would have before, or all these different areas. So kind of understanding that context, understanding the value, but at the same time, you'll be meeting other leaders. So you'll be, you know, talking to business leaders. You'll understand what they care about. You'll understand how they operate. You'll be getting your face in front of them. So again, there's that kind of visibility element, and then it's all just about kind of finding that opportunity to improve yourself as well. So, you know, when you're delivering, go back to being that solutions person. You know, that you're solving people's problems. You're you know, looking at your tickets. If you're in an operational role, you're doing root cause analysis. That's, you know, so you're flagging things when you see problems that are coming up, or, you know, regular kind of issues. So all those little bits, this is all driving towards you being more visible. But you'll be amazed at how much better the operations start to run when you're being proactive around these delivery things, rather than you know, just trying to deliver what's being asked of you. You know, there's nothing worse than trying to hit an SLA. You want to exceed an SLA. So how do you exceed an SLA? You look at, you know, all the little micro marginal gains where you can do a little 1% improvement here and there, because that's continuously raising your SLAs, but it's making your life easier at the same time. So all these little bits really start to build up, and then you are the solution person. You're the go-to person. You're solving real problems for real people. You're not just doing your job. All right. So that was kind of the that was really about getting noticed. I know that's kind of rapid fire. Hopefully there's a few bullets and bits that you kind of glean from that, and you can kind of pick away, but it's kind of, all you have to do is kind of target a few of those and really drive them forward, and kind of see how they start to almost take on their own life. So you're starting to get yourself noticed, and that's fantastic. And then the next step is you want to work on your promotion. And yeah, again, like I said at the start, in that kind of traditional working world that we used to have, it was all about getting a certain accreditation, or, you know, hitting certain delivery metrics and bits like that. And it is still very much that, but there's so much more. Yeah, if you want to continuously progress through, you have to understand all these different areas that become more and more important, especially as you move up the organization, or if you start to work in global organizations. If you're in the headquarters or out of the headquarters, lots of these bits start to change. So, and some of these were like massive aha moments for me. And when you look back now, you kind of go, oh, I should have realized something like that was going on. But it's incredibly hard till you're sitting in the right groups. I learned so much from going out in Cork with a HR director, and he got a little drunk and said a few things about how they do promotions, and it was kind of crazy. Like not the process, but kind of the fact that it was never told to people, and if it was told to people, it kind of changes that conversation. So there's really kind of 3 steps to this kind of getting promoted. And first one's all about how you operate. So this is very much tied back to the kind of visibility. There's a research bit, and then there's kind of proving it out as well. So when you're looking to operate, I think there's this real risk that people think that you're entitled to a promotion when you've been in a job a certain tenure. So you kind of feel like, I've delivered 6 projects, or I've been at the I don't know, senior developer 1 for the last 3 years, so therefore I should be promoted. And that doesn't work. I mean, the number one thing I'd say if you want to get promoted is be exceptional. I think far too often people think things are going to get given to you in life, and life's pretty unfair. Life's a big old place. So you just have to go out there, hit every metric that's out there. You have to be that example to other people. So this goes back to all that getting noticed stuff. You need to be helping other people. You need to be growing as a person. I think some of the biggest steps forward I've made in my career is when I've actually gone and done some personal development or kind of leadership development, or something that's not actually related to work. And probably the best recent example of this is we launched ServiceNow as a company. It was about 6 months ago now, and the ServiceNow is actually a pretty straightforward product to launch. I know the developers will hate me for saying that, but it's a market leader. It's kind of low code. There's a lot of built-in business process that's already in there. And what we actually needed to do was win hearts and minds, both of the end users and of the support organizations, that they needed to be on board with where we wanted to get to. There was going to be some business process re-architecture, and some of them aren't going to like it because IT people don't actually like change. I know we all like the concept of it, but actually we're kind of creatures of habit a lot of the time. So I actually did a marketing course. So I did some work around how to write good sales copy, because that actually helped with how to write good emails that were compelling. They captured people's emotions. We did some videos that were a bit of humor. So when we started cloning our environment, we did a video where we cloned me. So I was stood in a room, and then a copy of me walks into the room, because it was all about capturing that imagination, that people were kind of looking at it and they were interested. But it was that just going the extra mile, learning something that's unusual. And it's amazing how this crosses over to work. So it is that kind of be exceptional, go learn, go try something new, because kind of that status quo will only get us so far. And on that vein, I've never been rewarded when someone's told me I need to find $50,000 saving from our budget, and I've delivered $50,000, because your managers asked for it, so you delivered it. And there's always that nagging thought in the back of their head of, well, if I'd asked for 60, could you have got 60? So something I've found is always over deliver. So if you're asked for cost savings, go find that 60. If you're asked to meet an SLA of 95% resolution, aim for 97. All these little things that it's amazing what goes through a manager's mind when they're either trying to find a kind of a reason not to promote someone, or if they're trying to find or more importantly, the reason. I've got 3 people that are about the same, and you go, hang on, this person they always find that extra step. They're the one that's going above and beyond everything they need to do. So it sounds trivial, but it just sits in your head as a leader within an organization. And then the last bit on operate is kind of, again, back to that visibility stuff, and it's around seeing, helping others. Don't be the competition. Even when you're talking about promotions, it's like, how do I help everyone around me? Because that's contagious. Everyone sits there and realizes, when I joined Charles River and I started to talk to people, you find out, oh, he's the guy that we assign all the tickets to that are really hard, or this is the person that if you don't know what application that is, you go talk to them, because they're there, they know stuff, they're solving problems for other people, they become that funnel point. So you're then that critical element to operations, or critical element that could be involved in multiple projects, because you're the person that stuff, you help people, and it's kind of known to people that do that. So it's all just that, how to operate, be exceptional, go that step further. No one gives anything for free these days, so it's kind of just drive there. And then the next bit's around do the research, and this is where I said that I had the chat with the HR director. So first one, a lot of people don't do this, and it amazes me. Especially if you're in a large company, there'll be job descriptions, or there should be job descriptions around what's kind of expected. So whether it's the scale of the project, whether it's the team leadership or domain knowledge, or all those different areas, can make sure that you know exactly what that is, and then just start working at the next level up. So if you're a developer 1, you work at whatever the developer 2 job grade is. It's a bit like in the military, they don't promote someone into a role because they've got potential for being at the next level. They promote someone into the role because they're operating at that level, and therefore they're capable. So kind of push ahead. The worst thing you can ever say is, sorry, I'm not doing that, that's the job grade above me, because then you literally just put this ceiling on top of your head, and you can't go up, because you're the person that apparently doesn't want to do that job, but you do. You just feel like you want to get paid for it first. So know that job description, know what the next level is, offer to do the next level. And also there's quite often promotion criteria, so there'll be that, what do you have to do to get from this level to this level. And it might be a qualification, or it might be a certain tenure, or all these other bits that you kind of have to get together. So it's kind of getting all your ducks in line, so you've got all those bits. And the probably the last bit, and this really changed my career, is really understand what that next level is. So when you're reviewing that material, what's the next level up for you, and do you want it? Because so when I joined, like I said, I've kind of come up infrastructure stack mainly. So when I joined as a infrastructure engineer, I wanted to be an infrastructure manager. Then I wanted to be the head of infrastructure. There's probably a couple of levels in between that as well. Then I want to be CIO. And I had this vertical career path that I thought I wanted to do, because if you look at an org chart, that's the route up the org chart. But what I then realized is I don't want to be a CIO. It's not what excites me, and I think so many people chase that next step because they think it's better. I mean, the amount of times I've seen a really good storage architect be made the head of storage because they're the best person, but they don't enjoy it. They like solving problems. They don't give the work out to the team because they like solving the problems, and they don't want to be looking at budgets. They don't want to be looking at staffing models. They don't want to be looking at reduction in headcount and stuff like that, because they love technology. So be really clear when you look at that next level, is that where you want to get to? And also be clear, you can go sideways. You can move across organizations. So whether you want to go from development into projects, if you enjoy them, you might work in a quality organization, PMO, anything like that. Because if your career is if you want to be a manager, if you want to be a CIO, head of department, have a look, because there's very few CIOs that have gone straight up. They've all been across. You need to understand the different areas of IT. So don't be afraid to take a sideways move. I've done that a few times, or kind of done an angled move and expose yourself to something new. Go be uncomfortable for a little bit, running something that's kind of new. I think so many people just assume they want the next level, where you can have a fantastic career path being a sole contributor, all the way up to architect, or actually just finding that level that you're happy at, where you really enjoy it, and you're solving the problems that you like to solve, and actually that next level up will impact your personal life and your vitality and all those things that you actually care about, but you don't realize because you think you just I just want to earn more money, I just want a bigger paycheck, and it's not that important when you get to a certain stage. So that's about reviewing material. But the next one, and this was the HR stuff, is there's loads of secret handshakes. So yes, there's that material to review, but there's all these unwritten rules, or most companies have these unwritten rules, written on the back of a cigarette packet, or secret handshake as you go into a room, around what do you actually have to do to get promoted. So yes, you have to be hitting all your targets, you've got to be working at the next level up and bits like that, but there's other stuff. So multiple organizations I've worked at, you can't be promoted into a new role. So if there's a job advertised at the next grade up, you apply for it, you're successful, they will sometimes laterally move you across with a potential for promotion in the future. Or there'll be a requirement to have a degree before you're associate director level and above. And this stuff doesn't always get communicated, but then the best one that I've seen, and this is probably 4 companies that I've talked to are in the same spot. You have to have exceeded 2 years in a row if you want to get promoted. So most organizations will have like a problem child, below expectations, achieved, exceeded, excelled as their kind of end of year ratings. And you'll find that you need to have exceeded or more for 2 years in a row, and that's a good metric in a way. But firstly, it means that you need to plan your promotion 2 years in advance, and you need to make sure that you're hitting all those milestones and bits you need to do for 2 years. And there's nothing more disheartening than not knowing that information. And I'm not saying that people should be promoted every year, but I feel sometimes it's unfair that this information isn't made available to people. So have a really good conversation with your manager, or whether it's HR, and just kind of and sort of say, look, if I do all this, is there anything else I need to do? And I've asked straight up, are there any rules that aren't written down that I need to do? Especially as a manager now, asking HR, what do I need to tell my team? Because if someone says, I want to get promoted at the end of this year, and I say, well, you need to have exceeded twice in a row and you achieved last year, we've had a proper conversation. What I don't want to do is string someone on that they thinking they're going to get promoted at the end of the year, because it's all about integrity. So have a sensible conversation, learn what those secret handshakes are, and then the next bit, which is kind of tied to that, is there's this thing called talent review. I don't know how many people know about these. Again, very, very regular in a large organization, but it's a bit like Britain's Got Talent, but it's a bit more brutal at times. And what you basically have is you have this, sometimes it's like 4 blocker, or sometimes it's a 6 or 9 blocker, and you'll kind of have someone's potential along the bottom. So is it kind of the low potential, medium potential, high potential, and then you've kind of got up the side, it's how well they're delivering. So below standard, at standard, above standard. So where you want to get is that top corner box, which is I've got high potential and I'm high achiever at the moment. And what will happen is everyone's names will be put in boxes, and there'll be a picture next to the box when it comes up. And and this is when we're talking about who's the high performing talent, who's the risk. So who's the most frustrating one is when you've got a high potential, low performing person, because they're clearly capable, they're just not trying. And all this stuff will kind of get put up. And this kind of goes back to the visibility thing, because you'll realize it's not just your boss that needs to know you, because I'll stand there and I'll have my team up on the board, and I'll be saying, right, this person, she's amazing, she's done overhaul problem management, and she's really setting the world alight. And 3 people in the room will go, oh, I've never even spoken to her, or I haven't seen any of this. So it's kind of being aware that this talent review is coming on, so you kind of need to make sure there's lots of people that are aware of the good work you're doing, but also making sure that you're having those good conversations with your manager. You're sort of showing that you've got that potential, and just knowing that other people are going to be making an opinion on you is important, I think, because I've quite often put people forward for promotion and it's been knocked back. Sometimes it's because we can only promote a certain percentage of the organization each year. And sometimes it's because we haven't done a good enough job of getting that person in front of people. So I will actively get people to present on my behalf because they're sat in the right rooms. So they're the one presenting to the leadership team, not me, because I want their face in that room. I want them to have solved the problem because they did the work anyway. Yeah, I don't do anything anymore. All I'm doing is making introductions, providing air cover for people, and helping people. First thing I ask in meetings is how can I help, or like where are you having problems? And that's the important bit. It's like getting your team front and center. Goes back to the visibility, goes back to doing the uncomfortable things, being the presenter and bits like that. And like I said, it's just operate at that next level. Because again, if you're operating at that next level, you're showing that you are that high potential person, you're that driven person, and all those sorts of areas. So it's kind of really key. And then the last one, you kind of know this, is prove it. So there's kind of two elements to prove it. And firstly, it's have the metrics, have good metrics about what you've done. So and what's the context to it? So so often people will say, I reduced the mean time to recovery on my application from 5 hours down to 3, for example. But what does that 2 hours mean? If 2 people use your platform, that's not a huge saving. But if you've got 1,000 people using your application, you've now given everyone 2 hours back. And let's say the average wage is $17 an hour. Well, you've suddenly saved, my maths is terrible. So you've saved like 35 grand or whatever it is by giving that 2 hours back. So every time we have an outage, yes, there's an impact, but we're saving, or we're giving business productivity of 37,000 pounds back every single time. And that's a hugely powerful metric. And then that also helps when you want to ask for investment as well, because you've shown that value. But there's got to be a story. There's got to be an understanding to it. There's some terrible metrics in life that we can use. Within weight loss and things, they talk about people's BMI. But if you're a professional athlete, most professional athletes show as overweight. So rugby players, they all show as overweight, even if they've got hardly any fat on them, because it's not a metric for the masses. It is a metric for the masses, not for the niches. So be really careful when you say, like I said, if you've reduced a MTTR, but it's for a really small group, or if you automated a process that gave an hour's work back to an admin once a month, but it costs 200 grand. Well, that's not, the fact you've automated something great, but you've actually cost the company more money than it would have saved. So make sure there's a good metric, make sure there's a good story behind it. And one thing that I always tell my team to do is kind of make notes. When you're going through the year in IT, we deliver a phenomenal amount of work. The projects kind of keep coming, the operations keep coming, and I struggle to remember at the end of the year what I've done, especially last year, because it felt about 7 years long. And you need to make those notes of what did you deliver, what was the business value you had. If you had any customer feedback around a new enhancement that you delivered, make sure you're capturing that, because at the end of the year, if you're struggling to remember, your boss definitely hasn't. And then you can roll out almost like this TripAdvisor list of reviews. It's like, here's all the great stuff I did last year, here's what the business thinks, here's the business value. And it makes it so much easier. If your boss has got 5, 10, 15 direct reports, it's almost impossible for them to remember all these things. They all kind of blur together. So having that note, if you ever forget to do it, I just look through my calendar, just go through week by week and go, oh yeah, we did that project. But it makes it really important. Yeah, any learnings, like there was a major outage and here's what we learned, and then here's the RCA that we did, and here's the benefits that we then added to the organization. Make sure you're capturing that stuff, because it's really powerful. If it doesn't help with end of year promotion, it helps with you growing anyway, because you've made a note of it, you've learned from it, you've gained some insight. And then just think long term. I think so many people think that they need to prove it in a 12-month cycle. Not all projects are going to be 12 months. So yeah, if you're doing a massive transformational project, so digital transformation is obviously key at the moment with the drive to obviously improve efficiency, but there's so much paper being printed, signed, sent back, which is almost impossible now with remote staff. And you just need to make sure that you're not limiting what you're capable of delivering by thinking I have to do it in 12 months. Set an 18-month goal, set a 2-year goal, make sure you've got stage gates as you go through. And that's so much more valuable to the organization. And make sure that goal's aligned to the organization as well. So if it's one of their values, maybe it's sustainability or growth metrics or reducing running costs or revenue, make sure that you're tying a longer target to that, because that always helps with that discussion. I think the best way I had it summed up was kind of an individual contributor quite often, and this is back in kind of industrial revolution days, before I insult too many people, but an individual kind of thinks day to day. So they would kind of come in, they'd look at their machine, they'd work their way through, they'd come in the next morning, they get their new job list, they kind of go through. Team leads are kind of look week to week. You get a manager that's looking month to month, so they're looking at supply and demand and bits like that. But CEOs are kind of looking decades. Elon Musk wants to colonize Mars. I'm pretty sure we're not going to colonize Mars in his lifetime, but he's shooting for that aspirational goal. Now, I'm not saying that you want to be looking at 10 years down the line, but having that larger goal about where do you want your platform to be in 2 or 3 years, so then you're building roadmaps into it, so then you're building into it, is so beneficial to kind of that change that you want to bring, to showing that you're operating at that totally different level to your peers, because you're thinking, how do I add maximum business value in the long term? I'm not in it for me, I'm in it for the company, I'm in it for like I said, if you're talking about sustainability, you're in it for the planet, and that's so much more powerful. And also I find those are better goals as well, because there's always like a real flat point when you finish a project. I don't know if other people find it. You deliver this massive project, you've been heads down, you've been working really hard, and then you kind of have this sort of deflated sort of couple of weeks, maybe a month almost, where you were working really hard, now you've dropped back, you haven't really got a goal. But if it's on a journey to something bigger, you're continuing to push, you're continuing to understand the kind of what's next. So I always think they're huge, and then there's payback for you, even if it's not on a promotion. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Some really important things I think you should do is, I've found getting a coach or a mentor is hugely beneficial. If it's an external coach, they can help you keep focused. They're separated from the organization, so there's no kind of there's removed context of personalities, which is always helpful. And external accountability is so important for keeping you on track. I know when I've got a coach, I'm always worried if I committed to doing something by the next meeting, if you haven't done it, you'll make sure it's done, because you don't want to have that conversation about why you haven't done it. And then just all these things, just what you're trying to do is make it a no-brainer that someone should promote you, or that they should give you these opportunities. So it's just every so often have a think about, what more could I do? What are the other areas I could kind of focus on to really kind of move myself forward. And that's the end. I have a very shameless plug at the end, which I hope I don't get cut off for. But just in like I said, my kind of role pivoted. So and my direction pivoted. It was talking about IT Hive Mind, but I kind of want to leave people thinking about this, because as I said during the presentation, there is so much more to life than just your career. I think one of the biggest problems at the moment is we don't have a balanced life, especially in tech. It's kind of an always on nature that kind of makes you feel like you need to be continuously checking your email. It's hard to take holiday. I used to struggle to kind of spend time with the kids because I was worried that I'm not working and something might be blowing up at work. But then when I was playing with the kids, yeah, so then when I'm working, I'm feeling guilty that I'm not spending time with the kids. So I think it's so important that we make sure, as a kind of service providing organization, that we are finding time for ourselves. And like I said, when you're making your career decisions, make sure they're for the right reason. Don't chase a pay raise because you want a fast car like the guy across the road, because it won't make you happy. Having that balance, having that abundance in life, whether it's health or like going on adventures or having fun with your kids and bits like that, it's you kind of don't realize until you've lost it a little bit. But there is a lot more, and also you can live on a lot less than you think you need as well. So having a nice balance, you realize you don't need the flashy holiday. I always got told that success was having a holiday abroad every year, but actually sometimes we go camping and it's way more fun than going abroad. It's a lot less stressful. So just keep that in mind. If you're having a rough day, there's kind of more important stuff than life. I do have a Facebook group that I've shamelessly put at the bottom. And then the last bit is I've got a couple of resources from today. There's basically 2 PDFs. So I've got 2 ebooks, which is the steps for promotion, steps for getting noticed. If you want to do those, please use the links and get those. And also there's a YouTube channel. I'm sure there's a way to give a better link to a YouTube channel, but all of these videos were made all the steps were individually recorded as well. So there's actually 2 playlists with all of the videos. So if you want to have a look at them, there's some context with them as well. I'd love it if you commented on them, shared them. My kind of goal is to help as many IT people live that balanced life, enjoy work. I'm not about not working hard, because I still work hard, but it's so important to have that balance. So with that, I really appreciate you letting me the opportunity to come and present to you today.